Welcome everybody to this workshop on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a few disclaimers. I do not speak for AA. My name is Jude. I am a recovered alcoholic. I absolutely do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous. I do not speak on behalf of AA. I'm not endorsed in any way by Alcoholics Anonymous. I am sharing simply my reflections as they were passed to me by my granddad sponsor, Paul Doyle, who was sponsored by Clarence Snyder, who was sponsored by Dr. Bob. That doesn't make me better than any of you in any way. It just means that I was providentially placed when I was in a very unwell state as I was taken to Alcoholics Anonymous via a 3-month hospitalisation. And it just so happened that this was the message I got. So it's amazing and beautiful to see you all here today. I'm overwhelmed at how many have turned up, people that I know and love and people that I've yet to know and love. So here, if you can see my screen, there's a disclaimer here. So everything I'm going to tell you today is not my message. This is not what Jude says. So if there's anything disturbing or things that you don't agree with, try not to get resentment. Try not to think, oh, Jude said this and Jude said that. No, Jude doesn't say any of this. Jude is simply telling you or directing you to the parts of the big book that have saved my life and countless millions of other lives. Where you see, there's a couple of places in here where there's my opinion. I've put it in brackets, opinion, you may disregard, because that's the opinion of an alcoholic. And I don't know if that's going to work for millions, but I popped it in there because it seemed to have served me. So there's a couple of places, but be warned. That is me talking. You may choose to disregard with your discernment. So what we're talking about today, the message that I'm talking about is the message of the first 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. You may be disturbed about the question of alcoholism by the things I'm going to go through, or you might just absolutely love it like I did. On page 94, it talks about some of this stuff could disturb us on the topic of alcoholism, but this is all to the good. Because if you are, you may be more likely to follow the suggestions. I'm going to be making a couple of assumptions as I go through this. When you hear me talk about the word God, I'm talking about God of my conception or God of my understanding. The 12 steps do not define theology. They do not define a deity. They do not define a power. That's up to me. And it came to me as a result of taking the actions of the 12 steps. There is parts of the big book that are instructions, and there are parts of the big book that are metaphor or places where we could identify. I'm strictly talking about the 12 steps of our program. And I'm not passionate about this because I'm, I don't know, some blind faith big book thumper. Absolutely not. I'm a critical thinker who has tried to rip apart every line of this big book because I wanted to find an easier, softer way. I didn't want to have to do all of these things. I did think that I could, I did think I knew better at first. I really did. And I had to learn the hard way that anything I thought absolutely did not serve me. So if I come across as somebody who's like, oh, she works program perfectly, or she knows a lot, it's only because of the abject failure of my own will when I try to apply these principles in my affairs. So there we go. There are the assumptions. I'll talk about faith without works is dead very briefly. So why is it a program of action? It's a program of action because no amount of belief will get you sober here. No amount. Bill W. was a genius in many ways, and he was a flawed genius. He wasn't perfect. But there's some parts in our 12-step program where his vocabulary is laser guided and precise, and it's borne out in my almost 26 years of sobriety in AA. And he says 3 times in the first 76 pages of the big book, faith without works is dead. What does that mean? It means no amount of belief will get me sober here. It's the works, it's the actions I take. If he says something once, my experience is that I should pay attention. If he says something twice, I've found that my life depends on that information. And if he says it 3 times, it means it's in a box marked uranium. That means I really shouldn't mess around with it because it's that fatal. And he says it 3 times. If it was just about faith and belief, we wouldn't have drunk vicars or drunk nuns or drunk men and women who are in passionate relationships with Jesus Christ or with any other deity or organised religion or belief system. Belief and faith saves us only within the framework of 12 steps if you're an alcoholic that the big book was written for. So that's why it's not the faith that will get you anywhere here. You can believe as hard as you like. If your belief got you anywhere, you wouldn't need to be sitting among us now. So it's the actions of our program. So Belief may or may not come as a result of experience. That's nothing for me to get involved in. The output of these actions is your output. And it's a suggested program. We come to it from willingness. Yes, of course we do. We're not made to take the 12 steps. We have to come to it from willingness. But if you want what you have, you will need to understand what we did and the lengths we took to rid ourselves of self-centeredness. That is the thing. That is the problem here, self-centeredness. It says here on page 62, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. And this is important here. Almost above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. So it's not a secondary consideration. Alcohol isn't a consideration. Selfishness, self-centeredness is above everything. And the removal of that is the key that unlocks the door to the step 9 promises, the step 10 promises. All the promises in the book are the things that happen when we use these tools of the program to remove our selfishness. That was a hard thing for me to swallow, that my troubles are all of my own making. And we will get onto that part when we talk about infantry. Selfishness is also a tough word, isn't it? Because I had this view of myself, and I still do in some ways, that I'm not particularly selfish. I'm quite giving, quite loving, empathetic. It doesn't mean that. It means that part of self that dominates my thinking in ways that is supremely unhelpful to a sustainable and happy way of life. So if I'm calling Jean selfish, I'm not saying it in the way that we might understand. Or if I'm calling Jean dishonest, I'm not calling Jean a liar, although we may lie, I did. I'm talking about other characteristics of those words that aren't necessarily immediately obvious. And if I'm telling you anything that you already know, please accept my apologies. Everything I'm telling you today was not clear to me when I read the book in any shape or form. In any shape or form. I found it complex to understand. Selfishness doesn't quite mean what I thought it meant. The word resentment doesn't quite mean what I thought it meant. And I will get onto that too. So as it's a program of willingness, and we come in willingness, let's look at what the book actually says. There's a list in there, 57 examples from the big book where the word must is used. So we come to it willingly. But what do they then say to us? We must present to others. We must believe. We must have depth. And it goes on. We must admit. We must find a spiritual basis of life. We must be rid of selfishness. We must be entirely honest. We must not postpone. We must not shrink at anything. We must take the lead. We must carry the vision. We must go further. It's quite compelling, the language. And that's why they took the steps rapidly, because there's other parts of the big book that has also got compelling language about time frames. It says things like, immediately we, or next we launched. It doesn't say, take your time, have a little relax here. Because they knew that people like us taking our time, it's time for the mental obsession to take a hold. And some of us don't have time. Some of us just do not have time to sit in a place where our brains are not medicated with alcohol, because at some point we will drink. And for some of us, that drink is fatal. If you've been around long enough, you will have buried your friends. You will have. And worse than that, you'll see them drink. You'll see them drink and live a life that is purgatory. So there we go. So the big book clearly distinguishes between those who can stop if they've got sufficient reason and those who have lost the power of choice in drink. So who was the big book written for? So it's for those of us who have lost the power of choice in drink. So for those who have not lost the power of choice, the problem is largely behavioural. So they might hear, or I might have heard, don't drink today. And that can be sufficient for people who have not lost the power of choice in drink. For those people, one day at a time works great. Go to meetings works great, because their choice is intact. They can choose to stop drinking. But for the real alcoholic, as the book describes, the problem is not about controlling our drinking. The problem is the insanity that precedes the first drink. We drink again despite consequences. For us, just don't drink today has already failed repeatedly. And that is precisely why AA exists and why the big book was written. The big book presents a psychic change as the solution that restores us to sanity and places us in a position of neutrality. The big book does not say we stay sober one day at a time, or that recovery is about getting through today without a drink, or sobriety requires daily effort to resist alcohol. Instead, it makes much stronger claims. The problem has been removed. Sanity has been restored. Alcohol becomes neutral. The alcoholic is placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. That is not the language of daily struggle. You'll find that in the step 10 promises there. The big book does say, importantly, we've got a daily reprieve, but it's really crucial to read that entire sentence. It's not just the slogan, one day at a time. The reprieve is from the insanity, which is contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, not contingent on willpower. So the phrase one day at a time is often used in AA meetings and literature outside of the big book. And I think I did add in here that, yes, of course, when I was new, it was helpful for me to not feel overwhelmed that I would never drink again. So it's discernment. I'm not saying don't ever say that. I'm just saying, what does the big book actually say? Okay, so what does the big book actually say about the alcohol problem? The problem is removed once you've taken the spiritual actions outlined in the steps, page 85. The problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky or afraid. That is our experience. And the big book never suggests that we must stay sober one day at a time in the sense of constantly battling drink. Instead, it focuses on a spiritual awakening and continued spiritual growth to keep us in fit condition. Now, why is this relevant to taking someone through the book? Because it gives them a bit of hope. People come to us, and I came to it quite frightened. I didn't understand anything. I didn't know what was in it for me. I wanted to know what was in it for me. I wanted to know the good stuff. What you're promising here, not drinking doesn't sound great, honestly. Not a life of not drinking doesn't sound good. What have you got on offer? And it's this. It's this. The promises. The promises are what are on offer here. And page 85 says, we are headed in the right direction if we do not tire of this spiritual program. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels, and we are headed for trouble if we do. So I've thrown that in there at the very start, just to introduce the idea of what happens if I maintain my attitude of, I'm not sure this is for me, I'm not sure if I want to continue this work. What does it mean? What will my life look like if I don't drink anymore? And what might I have to do? So the daily reprieve means that our spiritual condition must be maintained each day, not that our sobriety resets every 24 hours. It's about staying spiritually fit. And the reprieve doesn't mean white-knuckling for 24 hours, starting sobriety over each morning or hanging on until bedtime. The daily reprieve is not a daily suspension of alcoholism. It is the ongoing continuation of neutrality and freedom already described. Okay, so who are the steps for? This is contentious. This is difficult. They're for the real alcoholic. The big book calls them the real alcoholics of page 21, page 23, page 24, page 92. And it makes a distinction between the real alcoholic and the hard drinker. So the hard drinker, what are they? Who are they? What do they do? If a sufficiently strong reason, like ill health, falling in love, a change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate. The hard drinker, with sufficient reason, can stop or moderate their drinking. I tried to stop and moderate my drinking. I wasn't a hard drinker. So that describes the normal or the hard drinker. When the consequences get bad enough, they can stop. They have not lost the power of choice and drink like the real alcoholic of page 91, page 92. We're starting to get into step 1 territory here. Starting to get into powerlessness. The big book was written for the real alcoholic who has no choice, where our own willpower fails. And this is important to understand the powerlessness of step 1. And it doesn't take long to transmit this kind of information to a newcomer. It really doesn't. The drinking may look the same as a hard drinker. My drinking can look the same as the drinking of a hard drinker. But the cause, why I kept relapsing, why I couldn't stay away from that first drink, the cause of my drinking was different to why a hard drinker can just decide to stop. And so the solution I needed is different. The hard drinker drinks because alcohol once worked, it eased life and made sense until the costs became too high. When reason takes over, they can stop and remain stopped. Okay? I've had people come to me who are hard drinkers and they want to go through the steps. And I have to think about page 102. I have to be of maximum usefulness to God and my fellows. I can't take a hard drinker through the steps because they're not powerless. I have to lovingly invite them to take a seat as per tradition 3, still short form, and know that if they want to stop drinking, they've got a desire to stop drinking, they can come. Of course they can. They can come and they can hang around to find out if they're part of tradition 3 long form, which is that we may refuse no alcoholic who wishes to recover. They may in time become an alcoholic that the big book was written for, I don't know. But if someone's not powerless, I've got nothing to offer them because they're not like me. Okay, so in AA, they often replace alcohol with fellowship and a social scene. The real alcoholic, on the other hand, drinks by compulsion, not choice. Even when alcohol brings no relief, they drink against their will. The mind creates justifications to hide the reality of powerlessness. Only an ongoing relationship with God keeps them sober. I'm using that word God, God of understanding, God of own conception. I'll let you into a secret. I still don't believe in God. I'm such a struggler, and I have to seek, and I have to pray, and I don't know. I just don't know still. And yet the programme is ruthlessly pragmatic for me because of the actions. And I have access to power that's given me a profound alteration to my reaction to life. I have accessed the page 567, unsuspected inner resources. This programme will work for any kind of belief, non-belief, doubt. If you hate the idea, spirituality, zero, none. Fully in a relationship with Jesus, whichever Abrahamic thing you've got going on, it just works. The actions will transform you. It is inevitable. For them, AA is not, going back to the hard drinker, for the hard drinker, AA is not therapy or a social club, but it's a daily practice of surrender and service. So these two types often share the same rooms of AA, but they differ deeply. When a real alcoholic enters AA and hears advice from the hard drinker of don't drink and go to meetings, and they will wonder why they relapse anyway. It's not a lack of willingness. It's the lack of a swift access to a power greater than ourselves. So step one, let's get into it. We were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. What does that mean? I go straight into what I thought happened. When I understood this, I thought, wow, I know something now. And then I had to be told very, very swiftly, self-knowledge avails me nothing. So understanding this step has to be backed up immediately with, yes, I'm glad you understand it. That will not help you at all. You'll have an understanding intellectually or in your guts, but that on its own will not keep you sober. So with that understanding, let's talk about what does that step mean. Alcoholics do not drink because they don't know better. They drink because the mind becomes insane in the split second before the first drink. We've got a blank spot. The big book calls it a blank spot. And it's with no defence, no memory of what happens when we take that first drink. And it calls it a peculiar mental twist, which is a kind of false justification that overrides all knowledge. And this is the insanity. There's a lack of proportion or the lack of ability to think straight. And sometimes we won't even see it coming. We just won't even see it coming. It'll be dressed up in logic as a good idea. This time it'll be different. I've had a few days sober. I've had a few months sober. I've had a few years sober. Surely I can just have one. If you'd have had my childhood, I've had a hard day. But it's Christmas. Oh, I'm in the Algarve. Wherever it could be. I will be able to just control it or manage it or drink like a gentleman. And it will sound so reasonable. And then it happens. And then when that happens, we know what happens after that. Bill had it happen to him. Page 7, understanding myself, now I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank once more. Page 26. His physical, mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs, that relapse was unthinkable. I'm doing so well in AA, the relapse is unthinkable. I know so much. I won't relapse because I know stuff. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give it himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. And we hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. I don't know why I relapsed. I don't know how it happened. And yet it's been clear, it's been in this text for decades. It's because if you're an alcoholic like me, you've got mental obsession. And that's what the mental obsession will do, time and time again. Page 36, he had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favour of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. There's a good idea. I know what I'll do. Milk put into whiskey, that's like now a good idea. It's insanity. Page 36, page 39, but the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. It's there in black and white. This is a point we wish to emphasise and re-emphasise, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let us take another illustration. And it just goes on and on and on. Page 40, self-knowledge will fix it. Page 42, I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental black spots. Self-knowledge does nothing in the moment we need it most. The problem is lack of power and lack of information. We know what happens when we drink, but knowledge does not appear. And that's why back in the olden days of Dr. Bob and Clarence, they knew that knowing and the rapidness and the onset and the cunning, powerful and baffling nature of the obsession, it doesn't wait. It doesn't wait for us to get our act in gear or to drift around or to take it easy. Some of us don't have the luxury of hanging around with a mental obsession. Okay, so the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. The word practically there is important, isn't it? Probably all of us can remember times when we were able to stop drinking for a moment or a while, or quite a while. But we always end up relapsing because it's not an effective defence against the first drink. I cannot rely on my will to be an effective defence against the first drink. So I'm unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory and suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defence against the first drink. And it goes on, carrying on. The big book Alcoholics Anonymous does not instruct us not to take the first drink. They know that we are unable to do that. So the book doesn't ever tell me, don't take the first drink. They know I cannot not take the first drink. And the next 21 pages, approximately, of the book deal with two facts. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is absolutely no avail. We are without defence. And if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Okay, so it just goes on and on and on. And that's the part of the powerlessness. Powerlessness is step one. And when you understand that, it's like, okay, I can see that I've got this condition or this illness. Chapter 7, for anyone who is working with others, this is the sponsor's instruction manual. It specifically directs me to focus on Chapter 3 more about alcoholism. The clue's in the title. Page 92, when you're working with others or approaching a newcomer, show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism, the chapter more about alcoholism. If he is alcoholic, he will understand you at once. And again, the title tells us what the chapter is about, more about alcoholism. If you want to understand alcoholism, you go to the chapter written about it. And interestingly, not to the doctor's medical opinion. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Because the doctor, in the medical opinion, it's a really important document and it's vital to understand that. It's what happens after I take a drink. That I can't just have one, I've got a physical allergy and one starts off that abnormal reaction in me. But the problem, the crux of the problem, which we'll get to, is what happens before I take that drink. When that part is fixed, the taking the drink is irrelevant. But it's important to know that the twofold condition is the thing that makes me powerless, because I have got that abnormal allergy. The allergy is after the horse has bolted. The big problem is page 23, it centres in my mind, and that's the part, the self-centeredness, that has to be dealt with by these 12 steps. Okay, so we know about drinking and the consequences of it. We know we can't control our drinking once we start. The doctor's opinion tells me that, doesn't it? Page 34 touches on this. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. So page 35 tells us what the real problem is of the hopeless alcoholic. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. For obviously this is the crux of the problem. The mental obsession is the crux of the problem. They're telling me, clear as day. Yeah, I can drink. I can tell you about how drunk I got and the consequences. I can tell you that all day long. I'm an expert at doing the actual drinking. This is the bit I need to fix, the crux of the problem of mental obsession. And if the only problem is the physical allergy, the craving that only happens once the first drink is taken, then the solution would be simple. Just don't drink. But real alcoholics drink again anyway. So page 34, this is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. So look, this is a bit of opinion, you can disregard it if you want. I've never been told by my sponsor not to take the first drink because she was clear and she understood powerlessness. She did not give me an instruction I'm unable to follow, no matter how determined I am. I could not take the first drink. I needed a power and I needed it quickly. Page 41 reminds me that my sponsor had a thing by knowing that your prospect will indeed drink again at some unforeseeable time in the future, and then to place the 12-step program of recovery fully at his disposal with no delay. More language that says it has to be done quickly. Some of us do not have time. If I could follow the instruction, don't drink no matter what, the big book would stop at the top of page 23. Page 94, maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. And if this isn't enough for your prospect or your newcomer, there's stories. Jim, charming wife and family. You can get into that if you need to. And then Fred, good income, happily married. He's still an alcoholic. And it talks about things like, I'm not necessarily drinking because I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm having a bad life or I had a bad childhood or I had a trauma. And of course we do drink about those things. But it also is important to understand that there were times when I drank when I was absolutely fine. And I do hear in meetings that people come to meetings and they say, I've stopped drinking, I feel great. These stories illustrate that. You may well feel great. That's not a sign that you do not have a mental obsession. And feeling great, it doesn't mean that you have a power that will stop you drinking. The line, the thought just came, or there was not a cloud on the horizon. And yet they were drunk. Page 41, I now remembered what my alcoholic friends had told me, how they prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come, I would drink. It's not the time and place might come. The time and place would come. It will come. If you have an alcoholic mind, you will drink. Another crushing blow for me, just like Fred had. Notice it says the time and place would come. It doesn't give any conditions, like if you feel down or if you don't get to enough meetings. There's no conditions. It'll happen. The second part of step 1 is the unmanageable part. My life was not unmanageable because of my drinking. I thought that was the case. It's unmanageable because I was trying to manage it. And that's important to understand. Where'd my years of managing my own life got me? Hospitalised, very unwell, just waking up in my own, in a hoarded flat surrounded by containers of urine, because for some reason I thought, I don't even know what's going on for me. And you don't even have to have those kind of consequences, or you can have worse consequences, or you can have much lighter consequences. The consequences don't matter with this illness. The only thing that matters is have you got the thing that happens to you just before you take that drink, the obsession? And have you got that thing that happens just after you take it, the allergy? And that's what makes you an alcoholic. And if you are the real alcoholic, this is the book for you. Okay, so that's how me managing my own life ended up. So the steps tap us into a new manager. Okay, that's the kind of metaphor for what the book talks about as well. We have a new director or a new employer. It means a new way of thinking, a new way of perceiving, a new way of reacting. And it's an experience. It's an experience that if you've had it, you know what it feels like. I still find it really hard to explain. So I might ask you in the Q&As after to speak about your experiences of the experience, the intuitive thinking, the inspired thought, being able to handle situations that used to baffle us, all of that good stuff, that peace of mind, that non-reactivity, that not getting resentful, the self-esteem, all the stuff. We'll get into the happiness at the end. It looks like, the unmanageability looks like the bedevilments of page 52. We were having trouble with our personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living, all the stuff. So I'm conceding in step 1, and I need to make that clear in the information I give to a newcomer, that I'm conceding that I have insufficient personal power to keep from drinking and manage my life successfully. And I'll always have insufficient personal power to do either of those. So step 1 opens us to step 2 and the promises of a power beyond our own, which will solve our problem. Page 45. It's not just stopping our drinking, it's solving our problem. And the unmanageability is because I'm, page 61, the actor. I won't read that part out, but I'm sure you're all aware of it. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. And at the bottom, is it not evident to all of the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor is self-centred, and that's why my life is unmanageable. Good, now we're on to step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The spiritual malady mentioned on page 67 can also be called a spiritual sickness or spiritual disease. To be spiritually sick is to be separated from God or your higher power, and it originates from resentments. Page 64 tell us that resentment is the number one offender, and it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. Okay, so resentments are not limited to alcoholics, but my only hope is to connect to this power greater than me via taking the 12 steps and as a result of experiencing a vital spiritual experience. So if I have this twofold illness of alcoholism, the mental obsession and the physical allergy, and I have a spiritual malady, that's two separate conditions. And the first 4 chapters present 2 qualifying symptoms. So the insanity is the mental defect that makes me take the first drink, and the craving, the abnormal reaction afterwards. And the malady is a separate thing. I'm going to get into this now. I still hear that people think it's a 3-fold illness. It's not. Let's understand fully once and for all why it's a 2-fold illness. The spiritual malady is the block to the solution, not the cause of the problem. I've got a 2-fold illness, not a 3-fold illness. Okay, so let me get into that a bit more. All humans suffer from emotions. All humans have a hard time coping sometimes. All humans struggle with life, aren't great at relationships all the time. That's good. But what makes me an alcoholic is that the only thing I share with people in this room is the physical allergy, the mental obsession. That's the 2-fold illness. I don't know if I share the other stuff with you all times. I really don't. But what I do know, what the book tells me, is that when I am in resentments, when I'm in this spiritual malady, I cannot access the solution. So that is the part we treat. We treat the human part that all humans share, because all humans have that, but only the alcoholic will drink themselves to death. And so I've got this 2-fold condition of drinking myself to death because I'm a human. And that's why it's a 2-fold condition of alcoholism, and the rest is human. We'll probably have to go over that in the Q&A. It's still hard to understand, isn't it? It's not the easiest thing. I'll just repeat here, though. The spiritual malady is the block to the solution. My resentments and my fears and being in a prison of my own mind is a block to the power and the peace and the good thinking. Okay? So just because I'm human, that's not the cause of the problem. The cause is, the alcoholic problem is the 2-fold illness. Okay, so step 2 is also saying, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. It's not asking me to believe in a power, it's asking to believe that. Came to believe that a power. Could it be possible that there is a power operating among you nicely dressed people who've got clean clothes on and brushed teeth and are doing things incredibly bewildering to someone who just couldn't even... Is it possible that this could work? Is there something afoot here that I don't understand? Could it be possible that I don't know everything? Could that be possible? That there is something going on here. I'm never asked to believe in anything in the steps. I'm just asked to believe, came to believe that there is something. And when you understand that, when I understood that, it became, I didn't have to wrestle with, oh God, I hate Sunday school, I'm a recovering Catholic, da-di-da. Didn't have to get into that. I've never been asked to get into that. I've got strong convictions around philosophy and theology. They're useless. This, all I have to take into account is step 2. Is something going on around here? Clearly there is. Clearly there is. Look, Jessica's got lipstick on. That didn't happen when she was drinking. You know, Marty's coherent. That didn't happen when she was drinking. So there is something going on that I may not understand. Do I need to understand it? No. I just need to do it. So that's it. Step 2, bang, done. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Now we're getting into the hard stuff, the God stuff. If you believe in God, that is a wonderful thing. Hold on to it for dear life. If you don't believe in God, don't worry. It's God of our conception, God of our understanding. The program meets you where you are. Step 3 is made a decision. 2, let's break it down. So I make 100 decisions a day, and it's not a drawn-out process. So when I hear I've been on step 3 for 3 months, I make 100 decisions a day, and it's quick. The decision is to do something in future. What am I doing in future? Deciding to do something in future. I'm deciding to turn my life and my will over to the care of God as I understood him. So step 3 is a decision to do the rest of the steps. Now, why does it mean that it's a decision to do the rest of the steps? Because the only mechanism we have in a 12-step program of AA to have my will removed, to have my life or my will turned over in any way, to have a different undertaking, to have my will removed in that sense. The only mechanism that exists for me to do that is steps 4 to 9. There's no other mechanism. I can't think my way into good thinking. I can't think my way into unselfishness. Myself cannot fix myself. The broken part of my brain cannot fix the broken part of my brain. I cannot just decide to not be in fear. Oh, I'm not in fear. I cannot just decide to not have a resentment that's crippling me and leading me to drink. I cannot decide. I've tried that. I'm determined. I make good decisions and I'm tenacious. I will get things done. I cannot think my way into better thinking. I cannot think my way into turning my will and my life over. The only decision I have to make is, can I decide to do this process so that that is delivered to me? It feels like I'm delivered into it. Okay, so that's quick when you understand it. Do you want to do a decision to do some stuff? Yeah, I do. I'm dying. If you're not well, it helps. Or even if you're actually in quite a good mood, it still makes it a lot easier. There's no wrangling. I didn't understand step 3, or I don't understand what step 3 looks like. And people say I take step 3 every day, and of course you can do that. Page 87 says, "See where religious people are right." The step 3 prayer is a beautifully powerful prayer, even for non-believers. Those words are magnificent, but I personally haven't taken step 3 every day. I just done it, 1, 2, 3, bang, got on with the rest of the work, and then I was on my way. The book doesn't say take step 3 every day. It just says made a decision, singular. But if there's a prayer in there that's useful, and I'll get into all the prayers at the end, beautiful prayers in the big book, even for atheists, honestly, it's a decision. 1, 2, 3, done. Now we're talking, we're qualified, let's get on to the transformation. But honestly, when I do step 3, something really profound happens really regularly with the people I work with. The goosebumps, the warmth, the power starts flowing in. Something transformative starts to happen, like Bill had in Towns. It really does. If you're awake to it, and if they're willing, and if they're ready, you know that feeling. You're probably getting a bit of goosebumps and warmth now as I'm talking about that step 3 prayer, because if you had that experience when you've done it, you will know how transformative it is. I'm not making this up. I sound like a lunatic, but it's true. It is absolutely true. So then, when they're fully committed to doing that, I ask the newcomer to take a few breaths, reset their nervous system in some ways, and then they start reading the step 3 prayer out, and I join them. And there's tears sometimes, and then they are ready to take 4 to 9. The fears start going. It's like, I need to do the rest. Not always, often, very often. If I'd have had time to think between steps 3 and 4, I wouldn't have done step 4. This is why it was quick, very quick. All this is done in the first meeting, my first call with a newcomer. I get them on their step 4 within a couple of hours, and then they have a day or 2 maximum to write their step 4. And when you see how quick step 4 is, it's not a life story, we'll get onto that. You'll see why they did do it this way in the olden days. So many people, this is a problem of step 3 that you might need to be aware of. Many people speak about step 3 as though it is an ongoing emotional state or a mystical tug of war with God, like I took my will back, I need to turn it over again, I must surrender more today. And that is not what the big book teaches. Step 3 is a decision made once, which is then carried out by taking steps 4 to 9. It tells us clearly this was only a beginning. But an effect, sometimes a very great one, will be felt at once. The decision is to stop running life on self-will and to submit to the AA way of living instead, which is the 12-step program. Nothing actually changes in step 3. Step 3 is the consent to change, and what our will on our life means. Will is our self-directed thinking and impulses. Our lives is our behaviour and the consequences that follow. Step 3 is not giving up the ability to think. It's giving up the belief that self-will works, that my way works. Clearly it hadn't. Where did it get me? It got me talking to the sponsor of the type that I had. It didn't get me anywhere. So it's not something achieved through emotion or by me deciding to do this. Thinking about how to do it is something that unfolds through the process. So why taking my will back or turning my will over can be misunderstood. So the language suggests that surrender is a feeling and recovery depends on maintaining a certain inner mood, or I must constantly monitor myself to stay surrendered. I must constantly think, oh, I've got to turn my will over. But I don't know how to do that. I've never seen instructions where I can think or choose how to do this. I've only got the process that delivers me into my will being removed. It feels like my will has been removed or turned over. If I could just turn my will over and think well, I wouldn't be sitting here amongst you fine people today. I would not need to come to AA, and I would not need to do this 12-step process. I've tried very hard not to have to do this 12-step process. I've tried very hard to avoid all of this with my own thinking. And I've tried various techniques and various other external practices. And this is the one that just does it really fast and really pragmatically. I don't love this message sometimes. It annoys me sometimes. It really does. We could put a man on the moon and I'm stuck doing inventory and prayer. It's not that compelling for some minds, but it just works. It just works. So, AA proposes something simpler. Self cannot fix self. Therefore, we follow the action that interrupts self-will. So step 3 is the decision to follow that action, the decision to stop directing life on self-will and to live by the AA program instead. The change in the will and the change in life occur as the result of steps 4 to 9, not at step 3 itself. Number 4, this is the one that people don't like doing. And I don't know why, because it's fast, quick and easy. Major searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. What does it mean? Resentments must be mastered. They're the number 1 offender, remember. They're the thing that takes us back. It doesn't say resentments must be identified and talked about endlessly in meetings or to sit in the suffering of resentments. It doesn't say that. And there's always pain. Pain always comes in life. And that is why the ruthless, pragmatic inventory actions are why you will hear. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. The steps remove the suffering that I create in my own mind. Page 23, the main problem centres in the alcoholic mind. So one of the most misunderstood, misinterpreted part of the program is the mastering of resentment. Firstly, the big book never suggests that we master resentments by looking for my part. Those words don't appear in the book. My part. It's treatment centre language. Might work for them, didn't work for me. Because the program and the solution are spiritual. It's not therapy. It's not psychoanalysis. The big book goes as far to say that it's irrelevant whether the cause of our resentment is fancied or real. It doesn't matter if I've made it up in my own mind, if I've imagined it, or if it actually is real. All of it's got the power to kill me. Page 66, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. This notion that we must look for our part or carry out some kind of about face or adjustment once I know that I've done something. It's not that. What we must see is that no matter the cause, we are unable to wish these resentments away by using some kind of cognitive process. Myself cannot seem to fix myself. Page 62, neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Me trying it on my own steam, it never worked. It just never worked. And the problem is not in what the others did. The problem is simply that we resent. And this was the big unlocking for me. When I understood, what does the word resentment mean? What were they on about? I was looking back over my life or over my day and I'm thinking, but I'm not that angry at you. I haven't really got a hump with you. It's like a niggle, or I'm thinking, or something's come up, or stuff keeps coming up, or something just, I'm triggered. That's a modern word for it, isn't it? Oh, it's triggered me. I can't think of a better word, honestly. What does resentment mean? What do they mean when they talk about resentments? And the word resentment comes from the French ressentiment, meaning to feel again, or to feel in turn. From the old French ressentir, from the Latin sentire, to feel. So what they meant is, I keep feeling things again and again and again. I keep having an emotional reaction to things that happened this morning, yesterday, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 odd years ago. Re-feeling. So don't think resentment inventory is about you being angry. Of course it can be. It's if you are re-feeling some kind of agitation, is a nice word to describe it. I'm disturbed, I'm agitated, something's not right here. I'm not feeling happy, joyous and free, for example. What's happening? There's something going on, resentment. I've got a ressentir. I'm re-feeling stuff. And I don't want to live in that pain. I really don't, or that agitation. Or even if it's mild, I don't want to feel it anymore. I've got a life that I need to be getting on with. A useful life. Okay, so that's what resentment means. Page 66, we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. So what angle are we looking at it from? We began to see that the world and the people really dominated us. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered. And it means to be overcome and to be conquered. But how? We could not wish them away. And this was our course. So we realised, we had the awareness that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. I had to have a think about that. I had to understand that. I was spiritually sick and I was wronged by others who perhaps were. I had to pray. Big ask for somebody who struggles with belief, but I did it. I had to ask to be shown the same tolerance, pity and patience that I would grant a sick friend. I had to keep asking the sick man's prayer. I call it, and I'm sorry for the believers who really do believe, but I do encounter a lot of people who don't believe, and I call it intentional directed thinking. I intentionally direct my thinking outwards in prayer. It's the same thing, it's just semantics. It's a bit of mental gymnastics that made it a little bit easier for me. Praying to God was hard for me at first, it honestly was. If it's easy to you, do it. But yes, I pray. I have to pray and ask. I ask. So when a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? I pray, God save me from being angry. I'm asking, I'm flicking something in my brain, in my neurocircuitry, in that asking process, in that breathing and pausing processes. Something's transforming. And with practice and repetition, my brain changes. The plasticity of my mind changes as a result of this repetition, asking, owning up to, thinking, or identifying. So there's some self-awareness, but then with that, what do? Ask. Get it gone. So we avoid retaliation or argument. And when I'm not feeling angry, that's easier. It didn't come easy to me. But yes, it's mainly happened. God will show us how to take a kindly, intolerant view of each and every one. Do those people that did those terrible things to us deserve kindness and tolerance and patience and love? Do they really deserve that? Those people who did those horrendous things, often when we were children. Probably they don't deserve it. I deserve the peace. And that's why I pray for them. To be removed, to have it removed. I deserve the peace from all of that. I don't want to re-feel. I do not. So I do this process. Not that they're necessarily virtuous and deserve all the good stuff, absolutely not. Some of them do, because they're sick and they can't help it. But I certainly deserve. Because if I'm not in peace, I can't do my job of page 102 of being maximum usefulness to God and my fellows. If I'm trapped in the prison of my own mind, I don't even know that you lot exist, honestly. I'm obsessed with myself. I've got a job to do today. It's the paradox of recovery that when I have my thoughts directed outwardly in that way, I can be useful. And that's the paradox, that when I do that, I get way, way, way more than I could ever have imagined receiving. And I was very sceptical about that. They said it would be the high point of my life, watching other people recover, giving away, being of service. They told me that it would be the high point of my life, and I thought, are you kidding me? I've done things. I've had high points. You don't seem to understand the high points I've had. And they said, no, this will be better. I was like, oh, okay, let's just get it done. The cynic. But somehow I did it. And it's true. It's a paradox of recovery. So anyway, page 67 doesn't say that I look for my part. It says I identify my defects of character only. My mistake or my fault is the language of the book, not my part. My part suggests that they had a part. And while they might have done bad things years ago, my fault is that I'm keeping re-feeling. My fault, my mistake. I cannot stop ruminating on this pain, and I will drink. That's my fault. No one has a part in that. I do it all myself. And it's human to feel pain and to feel trauma. It's valid. We wouldn't be human if we didn't feel those things. The book isn't asking me to accept the unacceptable in any way. There's no victim shaming. It's just asking me to be free of those things, because while these emotions are normal, natural reactions to awful things, what do the big books say? They call them the dubious luxury of normal men. Normal people can have these emotions all day long. They really can. We don't seem to be able to. We don't seem to be capable of having resentments in our lives, and some of the deeply traumatic things that many of us have survived, and the memories of that, and the triggers and the re-feelings of all of that stuff. We don't seem to bear it well. like normal men or women. We don't seem to bear it. So this is what we do instead. Okay, and it's not because there's no victim shaming. I get that a lot. That it's abhorrent that you should say that I caused all my own problems. That's not quite what it's saying. It's not quite what it's saying. If we don't understand that, we can chat about it afterwards. Okay, so the instructions are referring to this list again. The people, the institutions or principles of our resentment list, and we put out of our minds the wrongs others have done. We're not looking at the resentment now, which should have been mastered. We resolutely look for own mistake. We've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking and frightened. Remember those words. Selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear. Selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear. You get sick of me saying this. You will get sick of me saying this over and over again. That is the only thing I ever have to identify. The only thing. It's very important in inventory and in step 10. So we try to disregard the other person involved entirely. We go through the columns and we figure out what they did. Yeah, I get it. And then the book says, disregard them. We ignore what they've been done entirely. That doesn't serve us, doesn't serve me. Where were we to blame? And the blame there is that I'm rethinking, ruminating, troubling myself. That's my fault. And it also can be that I had a part in it. When I say a part, I mean I was present, or I retaliated, or it's not blaming in the blaming, shaming, in the shaming way. It's more like what was I doing to keep this going as a resentment? Okay, so when we saw our faults, we had listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. And we admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. So just to go back to that blame thing, we'll get more into that as we go into the amends section, because of course I did harm people and I was to blame for that. Stuff that I did that was driven by selfishness, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear, I absolutely did cause harm and I absolutely was to blame. Everything else, no. It seems no. Okay, so this is what step 4 inventory looks like. So we have here, I'm resentful at the thing, the cause. And it has to be really, really brief, because I can talk to you for hours about everything that went on in my life. It doesn't serve me. The whole point of inventory is to get out of self, to remove self. It's got to be as brief as the example in the book. So it's going to be a few words. I'm resentful at my mum, the cause. She abandoned me. Affects my, tick it or write it down. Selfish. And we're going to go into what do those words actually mean? How much writing do I have to do? Not much. And why do they appear so often? Selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear. The big book calls these the exact nature of my wrongs. These are the bits in step 5 that I admit to God, myself and another human being in step 5, or as part of step 10 inventory. Because we're trying to interrupt the self at all costs here. The writing down in black and white interrupts my circuitry. It uses my brain in ways that I haven't used before. A solitary self-appraisal, or me just thinking about it, doesn't work. For me particularly. The book tells me it doesn't work either. And then, by looking at this last column here, the defects, the 4 defects, that's the bit I can ask to be removed in prayer. And as time has gone on, I can intuitively do that. Could I at first? No. I still had to do my written columns. And admitting to another human the exact nature of my wrongs, that interrupting program. And also there's a bit of humiliation involved, a bit of shame involved. I got to the point where I was scribbling down step 10s and I'm like, I can't tell her this again. What did she tell me? She said, lean into page 87, pause when agitated or doubtful. Try not to get the resentment. Try not to display that behaviour. Try to stop it before it happens. It's easier. Then you don't have to tell me the exact nature because you haven't been in the defects. Lean into conscious contact of step 11. You lean into spiritual growth of working with another alcoholic. Do the actions of 10, 11 and 12 to get more spiritually fit. So I'm not having to say to my sponsor, oh, you never believe what happened. Yeah, I believe it. And so there's a whole raft of things that get involved in inventory, amends, prayer and service that help to interrupt self, and they're all really important. The writing, the admitting, the service, the looking outward, the thinking outward in prayer, all of these things in combination do the trick. So what step 4 is not, it is not analysis of childhood, it's not diagnosing others, it's not writing essays. Please, no, it's not writing essays. It's not me boring my sponsor for 8 hours about stuff. It's not. It's not justifying my own behaviour. It's not excusing the harm that I've caused. It's not about reliving trauma. It absolutely is not about reliving trauma. I don't ask for any detail when I work with others. I don't need to know the nature of the abandonment or the abuse in the home from their mother or father. I don't need to know that, because I know that they know that. They know all about that. They can put a couple of words, my dad abused me, right? That's all I need to know, because they know everything about that. And we get to the third column, what is it affecting you? How annihilated and obliterated have you been because of all of that horrible stuff that went on? It turns out that they've been absolutely annihilated, as we all have for some of these things. But the thing is, the book asked me, just put that to one side. I don't need to get involved in that. You don't need to get involved in revisiting trauma. Because the part that we look at is the defects, the 4 defects, and those are the bits that are removed, and then we get the freedom, and it's quick. So, there is no victim shaming. Objectively horrendous and traumatic things have happened to us in the past. It is normal and human to be deeply, profoundly affected. But on page 66, these feelings of resentment and fears, maybe the dubious luxury of normal men, for alcoholics, these things are poison. So the 4 columns, what exactly do they mean? Column 1, I resent. You write the person, institutional principle, 1 per line, no stories, no drama. Couple of words each one. My partner, my mother, my employer, whatever, briefs. Column 2, the cause, write what happened. And I mean in 2 or 3 words, like as briefly as you can. Because if I make it hard for myself, I'm not going to want to do it. Because I like the easy way, I still do. I don't want to write loads. Goodness me, no thanks. Keep it factual and brief. So they lied to me, betrayed my trust, withheld affection, humiliated me, abandoned me. No more than that. No more than that. And I have to say all the time, like my sponsor said to me, can I just gently redirect you into what we're doing here? Can I just directly direct you into what will help you? All this talking about me, is not going to help you. We've done all that for all your life. We've got to do a different thing. Can we try that? Column 3, affects my, just tick or list what instincts were threatened. The standard big book list is self-esteem, fear, pride, security, ambitions, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. Pocketbook is the finances, sex relations is how we relate to the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever our preferences are, all, whatever. I'll get into that properly. I didn't do a good job there, forgive me. Personal relations, how we get on with people. Ambitions, what I want for myself. Security, I found that hard to understand, but when it was explained to me that stuff that could make me feel insecure, so the security that I might have required and I might not have got. Fear, pride, self-esteem, they're a little bit more easy to understand. So column 4, my fault and my mistake, this is the important one. This column identifies how my instincts were operating, and this is the bit that's going to get good. Trust me and bear with me. There's been a lot of talking now, but really in the grand scheme of things, we've been doing it an hour and we're almost ready to get somebody away and do their written step 4 at this point. So what does selfish mean? The column identifies how my instincts were operating, not why I was hurt. It's not about blame or deserving. It's about the internal drivers and responses. So you fill it in using these meanings. Selfishness always starts with I want, I need, I demand, I thought I wanted, I thought I needed, I want, I need, me, what I wanted to get, keep or avoid. I must have, I need, I'm not going to be okay unless I do not get these things. Me, I need, want. Okay, so that's the self-ish part. I want stuff. I wanted a dog that didn't die. What happened? He died. There was pain. I wanted a mum that didn't. My mum didn't. Let's just use hypothetical examples. I wanted a parent that didn't abuse me. What did I get? A parent that did abuse me. The disconnect is the pain, and the self-seeking is the behaviour that follows that. What did I do? How did my behaviour show up to get what I wanted? What strategy did I employ? How did I manage myself? What actions did I take as a result of wanting and needing to be okay? Aggression, people pleasing. I said yes to things I should have said no to. I minimised. I became quieter. I didn't speak up when I should have spoken up. I mean, it could be 1,000 things. You've all got your lists. It's the behaviour. How did my behaviour get modified because of self? Dishonest. And it's not about I'm calling you a liar again. It's the distorted narrative or stories. It's those stories I tell myself that make it okay to do that behaviour of self-seeking, to make it okay to keep that part of self that wants and needs stuff. The lying, the minimisation of false beliefs I told myself or others to support the above. So it might be that, oh, it's so unfair that X happened. That's a tale I will tell myself. God, it's so unfair that happened. What would an honest look at life be like? An honest view of life could be something like, life isn't fair. The reality is that life isn't fair. And what do we do about that? But I'll cling on to the world owes me, the world should be better, the world should, politics should be a different thing, the kind of husband that partner I want should be a different thing, that it's not right, it's no good. A worldview that just isn't, it's a reality for sure, but it's not the reality. And I have to look at, where am I a little bit distorted in, oh, I met a guy in AA and then he didn't call me and I feel bad. Had he done the steps? No. Well, why did you think that he'd be a good bet? Like, I'll tell myself stories to think that, to make my decisions seem good, or like, I don't know. There'll be 100 of them we can get into afterwards, and these are all hypothetical for me. So fear is easy. It's the underlying fear. What was I afraid of would happen if I didn't get what I wanted? So that's the engine that is underneath all the other three of them. And the fears are, I didn't write this down, I should add it in. It's always fear of losing something I've got or not getting something that I want. So that's one part of inventory of step 4. The second part of inventory of step 4 is fear inventory. And we look at why we've got fear. That's an easier one to talk about. So we'd name fear of rejection. Why have I got this fear? I've been rejected occasionally and it feels bad. And then we look at self-reliance. Where did relying on myself, or how did all that work out for you, Jude? How did having all those fears work out for you? Well, it got me drinking, it got me to AA, and it got me very incapable of managing life successfully, actually. And I've still got the fear. That didn't even go. So none of this fear thing is good for me. And I'm not saying that it's not normal to have fears, but it's just not healthy for us. So this process gets the fears removed. I fear going in confined spaces. I fear literally anything. I fear that I'll never have a child because I'm getting older, not me. Or I fear that I'm going to lose something. Anything, any human response to life that's fearful, put it down, get it gone, live in freedom and peace. Page 67, this is a little bit tricky. They slip this one in here. So resentments, there's no sort of caveat here, but with fears, they can be a bit sticky. It doesn't promise that we're going to get rid of fears immediately, no. I might have to do a bit of work. I might have to scribble down step 10s quite regularly. I might have to throw myself even harder working with another alcoholic to be free of this stuff, but it does go. It says, page 67, once we commence to outgrow fear. It doesn't say we get rid of them overnight. Some of them do go overnight, but we commence to outgrow fear. And then the rest of the promises stack up, they do go. Sex inventory questions is the last part of inventory of step 4. As a sponsor, I do not care about this. Page 69, I'm not the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct at all. This is for you or for me, when I did it, to build a sane and sound ideal for future sex conduct. There's no immediate action when a newcomer or when somebody goes through the book, because it's for their future. But they could tomorrow be in the supermarket and catch someone's eye, and they'll need to know this stuff. Otherwise, it'll just be disasters waiting to happen, because we will be still operating from a place where we might not have had much success in the past. So it just asked me some simple questions. Where have I been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Who have I hurt? Did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where was I at fault, and what should I have done instead? So you will build from that set of questions what suits you for the future. And it might be monogamy with one person for the rest of your life. It might be swinging. I don't know. I don't care. You'll figure that out with your higher power. It's not for anyone to get involved in. The only guidelines that it has to be done in some sort of spiritual way where there's honesty, there's consideration, and it's not entirely selfish or selfish in any way, in fact. And jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness thing, warns that those aren't really good ways to operate. Causing harm warns that that's not a good thing to do. So there we go. Sex relations does not mean how I interact with sex intimacy partners in general. It refers to how my sexual and intimate instincts operate in relationship contexts. Okay, so what sex relations means in big book terms, it covers the patterns of behaviour, expectations and conduct connected to sexual intimacy, romantic attachment, pair bonding, attraction and desire, how closeness is sought, maintained or avoided. Interestingly, avoided is in there. And these is just my opinions, right? So you might want to disregard some of this stuff, but this is how I came to understand it, or how it was given to me, because it's not that clear. But I would suggest you seek your own counsel on this. This is just how mine worked for me. So it's about how I do intimacy. And it's not about gender or morality. It's not about orientation. So examples of threats or effects in column 3. It's fear of losing with fear inventory. Get rid of that. Fear of losing sexual or romantic connection, or using sex or withholding sex to regulate closeness, seeking validation through desire or people's opinions, or messages you might receive or need to receive, or interactions you might crave for any reason, or avoiding intimacy while craving it, or confusing sex with security or self-worth, staying sexually available to preserve an attachment that might not be serving you, or cutting off sexually to avoid vulnerability. So they're instinct level impacts, not acts. So what it doesn't get involved in that part of sex relations, it's not about scrolling up, general social behaviour with people, friendships, work relationships, respectful non-sexual interactions, or anything abstract about gender. That's personal relationships, so that goes in there. So a simple test you can use: if intimacy, desire, attachment or sexual validation are involved, it's to do with sex relations. If not, it's personal relations. And why the distinction matters: the big book separates these because sexual romantic attachment is uniquely powerful. It's often where fear, control and dependence lie, and it reveals misdirected reliance more clearly than other areas. People do really, really well until a relationship happens, or till something of sex relations happens, and it's tough. Relationships are tough, aren't they? So that's why it's got its own inventory. It's got its own dedicated inventory, because they knew that it needed something special for that one. Sex relations, bottom line, is how I operate in sexual and intimate bonding. So now we get on to step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And I've told you what are the exact nature: selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear. So I read my defects in column 4 to my spiritual guide or my trusted person. The big book never uses the word sponsor. And when I'm being read step 5, my role is not to get into, oh no, that must have been terrible. Although I am empathetic and loving, of course, but my role is just checking, quietly checking, not criticising. Because a lot of times I'll see inventory and it'll say I was selfish, I was dishonest and I was in fear, but there wasn't any self-seeking behaviour. And I'll say, can we just gently look at how that was for you? Did you do any of this type of thing? Could it have been possible that you did that kind of thing? And they go, oh no, I did that. I was like, okay, well, self-seeking was there then. And we just explore that. My sponsor just explored with me that I didn't miss any off because I did. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a long drawn out process. There's no 8-hour call with your spiritual guide. My step 4 was extensive, thorough and fearless. When I say it was fearless, it wasn't that I wasn't scared, it was that I had to do it anyway. It didn't take long. So there's instructions in the big book about why it's important to do step 5. You can read that at your leisure if you're working with others. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. It's one question that you'd ask. Are you ready? If you are ready, then you can carry on. If not, you can pray for willingness until you are ready. You reflect for 1 hour as per the big book instructions on page 76. So what's the timescales looking at the moment? So steps 1, 2 and 3. It can take about an hour chatting to get those done. Step 4, I'm going to take an hour to explain how to do step 4. So that's 2 hours. Then they go away. Right there, step 4. Takes a day, a couple of days maximum. can even take 4 to 6 hours. Immediately after that, because they're going to have opened a can of worms with these defects, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a little bit agitating. The relief from step 5 to step 9 has to come rapidly after step 4's been written. It's irresponsible of me to ask someone to write a step 4 without offering them the relief of step 5 to 9 immediately. So when I hear in meetings, I've been on step 4 for 10 months, I'm thinking, why you're living in that pain? You might relapse. That is pain. And they might have a long fuse, good. But they might not know how long their fuse is. The book knew. Immediately we take the book down for 1 hour. They're clear how quick it must be done. They're clear. So they'll do step 6, take their reflections down for an hour to make sure that they're not building on sand. And they'll go through the first 5 proposals, make sure they've not omitted anything. Then, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. It's a little prayer, it takes about 30 seconds, page 76. Even the language of the prayer can be adapted, because it says, when ready, we say something like this. For me at the time, I struggled with the word God. I really did. But I didn't have to use that word. It says, when ready, we say something. The words are not important of my prayers in AA. It's the spirit I enter into them. It's the spirit I enter into it. And I had to just essentially ask for stuff to be removed. And it felt in some ways like this surely won't work. I didn't believe it would work. And that's apparently quite common. But it did, and it continues to. So I made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So there's discernment here. This is why I needed a sponsor and still do. I need to seek wise counsel on page 76 onwards. A sponsor should really know that information, because we've already made our list of people we've harmed. That's column 1 in inventory, and there's no new list required. So the step 8 list is already made, and in sex inventory the list is already there. Who have we harmed? But there's no extra writing. So step 8 is already written as an output of step 4. And we'll just have a little chat to find out, did you harm them? If you went to make direct amends to them, would you cause them further harm? And it's not for me to tell them. It's to just understand the nature of what that harm could be, and then they'll reflect in their prayer life to be directed into what feels right for them. It's really worth checking with other people, though, with a trusted person, because sometimes the most loving thing I can do is to not disrupt someone's happy life. But every single amend is unique and individual. There is no guidance I can possibly give you on this whatsoever. It's individual. The instructions are in the book. Read them, discern them, think about them, pray on them, and you'll come to a inspired, intuitive way of handling things which might have been baffling once upon a time. So number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except to do so would injure them or others. The only piece of information there, it says page 99. Interestingly, the information on making amends doesn't even appear in this section. It appears in working with others. We must try to repair the damage immediately, lest we pay the penalty of a spree. Sorry, I missed that off. Penalty of a spree. So you can see that tucked away in the big book is advice on timelines and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So amends, we are to go and do them immediately. So when I put the phone down after they've done step 6, after they've done their step 5, they'll put the phone down, because they will know, because we'll have covered this off, right? You go and do your step 6, then you go and do your prayer. We'll have already looked at list made the list of who we've harmed. Who do you legitimately have to go and make direct amends to immediately, and who do you not have to because of harm? Who do you have to write a letter to, or who do you have to do it face-to-face or more directly? Okay, so they'll already know that at the end of the second meeting or the second call. And also by the end of that call, they'll understand about steps 10, 11 and 12. Sometimes the big book will allow me to get people to do step 11 not in the correct order, because what does it say? I'm going to jump to step 11, because sometimes when someone hasn't had a spiritual awakening, all they've got to cling on to for dear life is prayer, or getting into some sort of conscious contact with a higher power. And why does the big book allow me to get into step 11 kind of out of the blue, because it says here, on awakening. Did you wake up this morning? Yeah, you did. Just consider this part of step 11, meditation. It starts to introduce the idea of quietening our busy minds. And it's a discipline that helps quiet, and it gives us the ability to hear. When I say hear, I mean perceive better thoughts, better wisdom that's not available to me otherwise. And sometimes this is all they have if they haven't done the steps. So on awakening, it asks me to think about 24 hours ahead. I consider my plans for the day. I'm not reactive. I'm taking a view calmly. And when I say on awakening, it means as you open your eyes, because I had it the other day. Oh, I go downstairs and have a coffee, and I do my on awakening when I have my coffee. But I find I've already got a resentment by that time. It's like, well, you will have. Until you're in conscious contact and you've had a transformation or a psychic change, you're not. On awakening means words have meanings. I don't know what to tell you. Words have meanings in the big book. They knew better than I did. So anyway, before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest or self-seeking motives. I just do that. I ask myself from a divorce from myself every morning. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. So look, there's 7 questions, and this is big book. It's what it means by meditation, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact. Meditation in big book terms is not yoga practices, it's not kneeling or doing om or even any of that. Although page 87 says, if that stuff is helpful, see where religious people are right, if that stuff is helpful, do it. If it helps you to go on your knees to pray, absolutely do it. You won't find any instruction for me to do that in the big book, but if it helps you, do it. But meditation in big book terms is strictly 7 questions on awakening. What plans do I have for today? Am I seeking self-pity, dishonest or self-seeking motives in my plans? What am I afraid of today? Where do I need God's help? Where might I get resentful, fearful or dishonest today? Just be aware. Start thinking along these lines. Get a little bit more considered. Get a little bit less reactive. And in time, you're going to not be how I was when I first came in. Who can I help today? Imagine that. Where can I be useful? Imagine that. Imagine considering that aspect of living as the selfish alcoholic that I was. Who can I help today? How can I practice love and tolerance towards others today? Well, that's still quite important in my life today. I'm not always good at that. What is the next right thing for me today? Okay, so that's your 7 questions of meditation on awakening. There's some prayers. Step 11, are you going to retire at night? Yes, you are going to go to bed at night. So there's some instructions there. We constructively review our day. We're resentful. So, oh, look, these things are come up again. Look, where we're resentful, selfish, dishonest or afraid. Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Okay, what does it mean there? It doesn't mean that if I kept something that I should be going on about to my sponsor or my friends, oh, this happened, that happened. No, it means specifically, have I kept something to myself, the exact nature of my wrongs, which I should have told another human? Have I got selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty and fear that I should have identified in step 10 inventory that I should have told another human to be relieved in prayer and not be burdened with them? It's not about me saying, oh, I'm going to tell everyone my business. No. Is it that column of defects? So step 11 is a check for step 10. Because they knew we were slippery. They knew that telling us once in step 10 wouldn't have been enough. So they said, look, they might need a reminder. Tell them to do it in step 11. Check in step 11 you've actually behaved yourself. Oh, there you go. There's the instruction. Bit varied, but it's in there. Okay, so where's I kind and loving toward all? What could I have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for ourselves or what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to ourselves and others. That is always so important, and I hear it all the time, and it's part of me as well. Morbid reflection, me, self-pity, self-blame, self-obsession. What's the option here? Self-centeredness. It's self, always self. So if I'm in that self-pity, I'm not useful. I can't notice what a beautiful friend Jessica is to me. I can't notice how inspirational Jill is to me. I got no chance because I'm self-obsessed. So this is when I talk to you about refeeling. Refeeling, it's morbid self-reflection, the self. I can't stop thinking about myself. What do we do? What's the tool? Inventory, identify, ask it to be removed, it goes, I can have a good day, me and Jess can have a laugh, me and Jill can have a laugh. It's all very lovely. And there's a discipline involved. So that's why we can do step 11. And just to go back to the second meeting that I would have with a newcomer, they will know about all this. Because they will know as immediately they've written their step 4, they will be doing steps 10, 11 and 12. Because that night, they'd have done their step 5 that day. That night, they'd have done 6, 7, 8 and 9 will be ongoing, but pretty rapid. And then what do? 10, 11 and 12 from that moment on. Because step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So it's all the same tools. We've only got one way out here. It's the same process. Step 4 to 9, clear the wreckage of our past. It takes a little bit longer. Step 10 is throughout the day. We continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. We ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. The word discuss is doing a bit of heavy lifting there. I don't need to discuss your defects. You need to admit them to me. So that's what it means. I'm witnessing them. But I don't need to get into the drama of you. My sponsor doesn't need to waste her time hearing about the drama of me. That would be very selfish of me, in fact, to burden her with me. That's not helpful to her. It's not helpful to me. So if we have harmed anyone, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. That's the part that seems to hold the glue that holds everything together there. Turning our thoughts to others we can help. So step 10 actions. Identify it. Ask for it to be removed. Talk to someone immediately. I say here, the modern way, you can call or text or send a photo of your columns in to me. The exact nature of our wrongs is what we share with another human being. It doesn't seem to be more complicated than that. Make amends right away if you've harmed anyone. Turn your thoughts to helping someone else. So why is step 10 important? It's because it's like a spot check inventory. You'll be doing these constantly throughout. When you're brand new, when I was brand new, I had to do these. I had to do it constantly. I did about 20 one day. People might do more, they might do less. You'll be doing these constantly throughout the day. Step 10 doesn't say if fears and resentments come up. It says when they come up. It's the same column format as step 4. I scribbled them down. Sometimes I scribbled them down on the back of a fag packet. It was quick. And within a short amount of time, I didn't have to do so much written step 10s. And today I don't often have to do written step 10s. I still occasionally absolutely do have to do them, because this is my rule and this is my opinion. My opinion is, you may disregard this. If I cannot breathe using the page 87, pausing when I'm agitated or doubtful, if I can't pause or blink away a resentment or feeling of agitation, if it's not that quick, if it's lingering, if I can't get rid of it and I don't feel great, I might have to scribble down a step 10. I might have to. It's rapid freedom. It's rapid freedom. So then we get into step 11, which I've just gone through to you. And what we've taken an hour and a half, so we've got a bit of extra time. I'm already tired of talking, listening to the sound of my own voice. Okay, so step 12. In some ways, this is the best bit. Steps 1 to 11 are all about me. And the program wants me to not be about me. So the start of our program is step 12. It's not step 1. So step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. There's no other result of the steps. The awakening is the result of them. We try to carry this message that we have had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So step 12 tells something very precise about carrying the message. The opening matters, the message, and there's only one message in AA. It follows an experience. Something has to happen first before I'm able to carry any kind of message. Page 164, well, obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right. Make that pronoun or that concept suitable for your own self. See that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. You can't give away what you don't possess. And the 12 by 12 echoes the same idea. If our turn comes to speak at a meeting, we again try to carry AA's message. So the question becomes, what is that message? So the message isn't my personal history, it's not my opinion, it's not the drama of my life, it's not me moaning about me and me being poor me and how hard life is. I might, and it may be valid for me to share that life is hard, because life is really hard. But the message is that I am sober, because of my direct experience of taking the steps as they're described in the book. So I can, according to AA Unity, according to our traditions, and according to what we do here, I can say that I am struggling so bad, I am in such a bad way, I'm in so much pain. But you know what? The obsession to drink is not there. And you know why? Because I took the steps and I'm doing 10, 11 and 12. And the thing is, if I haven't had the awakening as a result of these steps, I don't have a message to pass on. And you'll hear it. You'll hear it. When you're awake, when you've taken the steps, you will hear. I hear people who used to talk how I used to talk all the time. I kind of cringe. I thought I knew things. I didn't know things. And I still don't know things. Every day I'm learning more and more. I'll look back at this in 5 years and cringe. I'll be like, oh God, I thought I knew things. I don't. At least I know what the message of AA is, I guess. It's something, thanks to the way it was transmitted to me in some ways. So all of the above that I've just told you can be done with your new person once you've established that they are the real alcoholic and are willing to go to any lengths. And when they are, this takes a call or meeting of 2 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more. Use discernment. Step 5, they share the exact nature of their wrongs. There's no need for a drawn-out life story. They know their own life story, that I don't need more me. We're trying to get rid of self into becoming other-directed or God-directed. The words life story do appear in that part in the big book, and people do say, I don't trust anyone enough to give them my life story. It doesn't mean that. It means the story of how our defects dominated our lives. Step 6, instructions takes an hour. Step 7 takes a few minutes. Do it immediately after step 6. Step 8 is a check for willingness. If they're not willing, they pray until they are. Discover why they're unwilling to make amends, and look at the warnings in the big book about stopping at step 8. We may not get over drinking if we don't. Page 72. I don't know what it is, but this year's been a lot of relapses because of unwillingness to make amends. More than, it's just a blip, I'm not sure why, but it has been a thing for me, and possibly a couple of others. Step 9, make direct amends except where harm may be caused. The key is willingness. Remind them that living amends, spare me if I hear that one more time. Remind me that living amends are not part of our solution. Direct amends are. We may approach things from the flank, but avoidance by thinking that being sober is enough is not amends. It won't help you. But I'm doing my living amends because I'm sober today. That's the bare minimum, I'm sorry. The bare minimum to be a human being, a functional, satisfactory human being. It's just, that's not it. There's no living amends in the big book. It's good that you're not drinking, but have you dealt with the problem, your self-centeredness? Let's have a look at that, shall we? The second call is where they share step 5. They'll know at this point when I've gone over that. And then at step 10, this is the thing. The task is now to perfect and enlarge our spiritual life. You will need to write columns as part of step 10 at first until your thinking is placed on a higher plane. And I still sometimes do have to write columns. Page 85 says it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. Page 14, we've got to jump back into the start of the big book to find out why this is all important. My friend had emphasised the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs, particularly was imperative. It's not optional. You don't just do it occasionally. It's imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said, and I told you about that, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. So if I'm not seeing anyone at least trying to carry some sort of message, I'm thinking, that 11-step work, that 11-step program, good luck with that. Good luck with that. It's terrifying. When I tried an 11-step program, it ended up horrendously awful for me. You don't have to make the mistakes I made. You don't have to make the mistakes I made. And it says here, how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive certain trials and low spots ahead. He could not survive life. Life is not survivable unless we do step 12. I can't make it clearer than that. Okay, and if he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. The real alcoholic, with us, the real alcoholics, it is just like that. Page 12, we have to resolutely turn our thoughts to others we can help. So people tell me, and I tell my sponsor, here are my defects. I'm praying for it to be removed. And then I'll get a little reminder, go and find another alcoholic. Go and help others. My job of page 102 is to be of maximum usefulness to God and our fellows. Page 89 says, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. So that's permanent sobriety on offer here. The book is really clear that permanent sobriety is on offer. It says, are you ready to give up drinking once and for all? Stopping drinking forever. It's a permanent option. Not dying sober is on offer in AA because there's immunity on offer via step 12. It works when other activities fail. Even there could be moments when prayer isn't quick enough to work, inventory isn't quick enough to work. What works when other activities fail? This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. And these things that are coming up now don't seem powerful really in some ways. They are the most powerful unlocking for cognitive well-being I've ever found. And I don't even believe in God. Here are all the prayers in the big book. At step 4, when you've got a resentment about all these people that have done those bad things, we ask God to help show the same tolerance, pity and patience that we cheerfully grant a sick friend. Step 4, sick man's prayer. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Fear inventory. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. Step 4, ideals. We ask God to mould our ideals and help us to live up to them. Ask God for help. Step 5, we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Step 6, if we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. And it goes on and on and on. The step 7 prayer is in there. Step 9, reminding ourselves that we've decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. We ask God, we just ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Step 10, we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment and fear. When these crop up, we ask for them to be removed. Step 10, we constructively review our day where we were resentful, blah, blah, blah. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm asking, I'm inquiring. And what happens? Some wisdom comes. Some intuitive thinking comes. Quietness comes. My first thoughts don't come. No one needs to have my first thoughts. I certainly don't. They got me to AA. Step 11, prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer. Step 12, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your fault. Admit your fault to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past in step 4 to 9. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you'll surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Step 12. Nothing ensures our immunity. Carry this message. This is our 12th suggestion. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for... I've got my whole life to continue this. What a gift. This is my job, page 102. And something that's very helpful to me. I've just dropped this in at the end. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics. The majority aren't interested. And what do? Drop them. Drop them until they change their mind. Can't help you. I'm not your friend, I'm sorry. I'm here to be effective. I'm not here to be liked. It just so happens I'm very liked and I'm very loving. But I do not serve you by being your emotional crutch or your friend or your support system. That's fatal for someone like me. The only thing that can save me are the spiritual tools that were laid at my feet. If I'm not interested in picking up those tools, they get dropped. It's not my language. It's the big book language. Don't get the hump. But the moment you change your mind and show willingness, there's a life beyond your wildest dreams on offer here. That will do for now. Thank you.